Hello, my name is Bill Stewart. I've been asked to talk to you today about a couple of considerations regarding the best ways to implement trauma-informed practices in your schools. One of the key things to keep in mind is that siloed efforts are less effective than collaborative, coordinated efforts. And so if you're already working on strategies around SEL or diversity, equity, and inclusion, having a trauma-informed lens that connects all three of those domains together will be far more effective and efficient. To give you an example of what this might mean, from my perspective and that of many others, diversity, equity, and inclusion, social emotional learning, and trauma-informed practices are the central pillars in having a school climate that's conducive to the success of staff and students, academic and personal success, safety, no bullying, and strong community connections. Just a reminder so that we're all talking about the same thing. There are three kinds of stress that you can see illustrated here. It's important to keep in mind that they're not all bad. Positive stress, which you can see described there, is something that we use frequently in education. We use frequently in music. We use frequently in a lot of places to put ourselves in a state of cognitive dissonance that helps us learn and be open to new ideas. Tolerable stress is significant, but if it's mitigated or buffered by resilience factors or other issues that are found in the community and the school, then there's no likely long-term harm or impact to the individual. It's toxic stress that we worry about, things that are inescapable, that are so intense, frequent, or extended that they have significant impacts on brain development, physiological functions, and a variety of other aspects of children's lives. And that's why we call toxic stress the precursor to trauma. And you can see the definition of an adverse childhood experience. Again, it's that toxic stress aspect that causes long-term impacts in kids that often result in things that as educators, we find difficult, even impossible, it seems at times, to cope with. Another component about trauma that's important to consider are the multi-generational aspects. A lot of times we think of trauma as coming from one individual to a child and resulting in an ACE, but it can come multi-generationally in several forms. It can truly be genetic differences, factors that are passed on from one generation to another. It can be epigenetic changes, which means changes in the way genes are expressed. The message isn't wrong, like it might be in the first one, but it might be copied incorrectly, like having a faulty copy machine when you're doing copying of some sort of a original transcript. And then finally, the one that probably you've thought a lot about recently because of recent events are experience factors. Those are trauma-generated changes in how we look at the world that get learned and repeated and passed on from one generation to the next. Some of those things are the best that civilization has to offer. Religions, knowledge, a variety of things that can be positive and constructive. But there are also things that are on the dark side, that are more challenging, that really make it hard for us to see our path forward. All told, these three factors contribute to what's called generational trauma. Recently in Oregon, we've had a number of things that qualify as ACEs, even though they're not on the original ACE list. And remember that the definition is anything that causes a child to experience toxic stress. So COVID has had a huge impact. Racism and inequality, the violence that resulted, the fires in Oregon, a variety of other things that add to the burden that kids have to carry. And you can see some specifics down at the bottom of the slide. When we think about those, we need to keep this in mind, that there are things on the right-hand side that are negative and cause kids real developmental issues and cause long-term problems. But on the left are the offsetting positive resilience factors and protective factors that can help kids rebound or resist the effects of trauma, turning it back into tolerable stress, which we talked about earlier. Ultimately, what we hope to be able to do by buffering is to mitigate the impact of ACEs and multi-generational trauma from a broad spectrum of the population that's affected at each of these levels of impact, and just simply squeeze the base of that pyramid down so that there's fewer individuals impacted and the impact is lesser, and therefore there are more kids that are more likely to be more successful throughout their school career and beyond. Later, you can take a look at parts 2 and 3 of this series, and I hope you'll find them useful. Thanks for watching.